welcome back for one of our other prereq videos for our public access class with the Crazy2Calm Canine Coaches. I'm Penny Beeman with Yooper Paws of Love, and we also have Cindy Campbell from Clovis Paws for Play. We just want to chat a little bit today about deciding where and when you should take your service dog. And so we kind of just want to think a minute, like, of course, almost everybody going through this class is going to have a younger dog, their service dog that's still in training. And right now your focus might be on what situations your dog is training in. But eventually, hopefully one day your dog's going to be fully trained. And that is kind of what we want to talk about today, is when your dog is fully trained, what situations will you take them with you in, and what situations would you not? There is a kind of a big, I don't know, it's not really a myth, but a thought amongst the service dog world is that if you have a service dog, you always have to have them. And that simply isn't true. That's kind of the general public has that thought. And if they ever, someone who is used to seeing you with your service dog and you go in one time without, they'll just be shocked, like, where's your dog? But it's important to know that, like, we don't always need to take our dogs with us, and not all places are covered under ADA law. And so that's kind of what we want to talk about today. We're going to look just a little bit at the ADA laws as far as what places ADA laws don't cover and what places might have a little bit of an exception. And so the big ones with ADA law that are not covered are anything that is a federal building or federal land. They have their own laws, and Cindy's going to talk to us about that a bit more in just a moment. The second one is churches or any place that is a worship center, and also any place that is a membership only club, such as the Lions Club or Kiwanis Club. There's a bunch of different ones out there, but if it is a club based thing that where their functions and their building is only open to members, they're not required to accommodate a service dog.
They are required to accommodate the service dog if they're having an event that is open to the public, though.
True.
So if you go to we'll use this one, for example, because I actually had this happen. If you go to an AKC show that's being put on by a local kennel club, that show is being opened up to the general public. Anybody can go on the property. You don't have to be showing. You don't have to be a member of the club. So I actually had an AKC official at one of these shows tell me I couldn't have a gentle leader on my dog while I was at the show. And I said, well, yes, I can. I said, state and federal law supersedes what the AKC rules are. And she said, and she told me, oh no, you can't have a gentle leader on your dog at the show. Well, I called the state, and the state said, no, she's wrong. I contacted the AKC. They asked me what kennel club it was, and I told them, and they were contacting the kennel club to tell them, no, a service dog handler can have whatever means of controlling their dog that they need on their dog, even though the show rules specifically say that you can't. So it's good to know where it supersedes, but the point of all that is, even that's a private club being opened up to a public club, being opened up to the public, versus
Right.
a Lions Club meeting where it's just lions there and nobody else.
And even a fundraiser, you know, some clubs will have a fundraiser, and if that fundraiser is closed to members only, then they don't have to require a service dog.
Or
but if they're having a fundraiser that's open to the public, then they need to accommodate.
And going to a private person's home, that person is not required to have your dog arrive there. And
Totally.
and
ADA covers public places that offer goods and services to people, and it's not the dog that has the permission to be there, it's the handler that has permission to use their dog in those public places, where otherwise it would be considered a health code violation generally for a dog to be in that area. And therefore, that's where the ADA gives the permission for the handler, because ADA supersedes the health code laws that says dogs can't be in this environment.
There's specifics to that, because there's specific places they don't want the dogs where food prep is concerned.
Right.
And that would more be more have to do with job accommodation than it would with public access.
Right, because a service dog has rights to go into a restaurant, but they're not where the food prep is. It doesn't mean that company can make an accommodation to have that service dog working in the kitchen. So you have to kind of think responsibly. And so, yes, we kind of have to be able to advocate for our dogs, and a lot of other people don't know the law, so we need to be really good at being able to say, yes, this is a service dog, these are their tasks, and ADA law gives me the rights to the services in this building with my service dog with me. And so we have to be able to advocate for that, but we also have to realize that not all places are required to allow us. Another big one that does not allow or may allow in partial areas is places like zoos or any place that has other animals that live on property that could be impacted by your dog being there.
Especially if they have big cats like lions and tigers, or if they have bears or anything that might see your dog as prey. And places like the monkey house, I'm not exactly sure what the issue is with monkeys, and dogs, but I know that
it stresses the monkeys out too much, because dogs would prey on monkeys in life, and it just
they can be by other animals that they see as prey.
Right.
But the monkey house, you're not allowed, it's generally not service dog friendly.
And larger zoos will have rules, and they'll have that posted, and usually they'll give you a pamphlet when you walk in that says you can take your service dog in this area, this area, this area, but not this area or this area.
And they'll often pull you, if they see you standing in line, they will pull you aside and screen you usually I found that when I've had my service dog, I've been screened and gotten through the line much quicker than when I've been places without my service dog, because they want to get you through. They know it's going to take some time if you go through the normal line, and they can get through the information and hand it to you much quicker and in a more dedicated manner than if you're standing out in the line and somebody has to come over and screen your dog.
The problem where most handlers run into it, and especially in my area where we have lots of rural, privately owned farms that may be apple orchards or pumpkin patches and things of that nature, that are not yes, they're open to the public, or you pay your ticket price to get in or whatever, but still that's considered open to the public. But if they have animals on that property that will be impacted, and I think it has to be specifically, it can't just be they have dogs on that property that live there, and so they're going to deny you because their dogs don't like friendly dogs. That's the owner's right. But if they have something like llama, or there are a lot of other animals that are bothered by dogs that might be in a petting farm kind of area or petting zoo area, or might be at a pumpkin patch. I think zebra is one that doesn't do so well with dogs either. So if they have that, they can say, yes, you cannot be in this area. It's always good to check beforehand. The other problem is, since most of those are small and independent, especially in my area, they don't know the laws. And so you're more likely to get an access denial because the people that are working their booth and taking your admittance fee know that this is a no dog zone. And then you have to tell them, well, this is a service dog kind of thing. And they may or may not let you in based on whatever previous experiences they've had with service dogs. If they've had lots of people say that this is a service dog and then that dog act inappropriately inside, they're more likely to say, no, we don't allow service dogs either.
And
So,
in a situation like that, if it's and if they're having an issue because with your service dog, because they've had a lot of problems, it might be better to go without the service dog. But we'll talk about that in a minute, but
right.
It's something to consider when you go to someplace that's more likely to have limitations on your service dog. Is it really worth taking the service dog? And do I even know if the farm I'm going to is going to allow it? You can call first and find out and confirm. That may be helpful.
That's what's going to be my suggestion, because like for me, I have multiple apple orchards around me that I could choose to go to, right? And I might really want to go to one for something they're offering. But if I call them ahead of time and I will always call ahead of time because I don't want that problem at the gate. I want them to know I'm coming. I also want to make sure that if they have a dog on property that roams freely, that they will contain that dog before I bring my service dog. So I want to call ahead. And if they say, no, we don't like our service dogs, and I chat about them and you know, kind of, if it's not going anywhere, I don't want to spend my money there either. You know, if it's something that I have like grandkids or family and everyone is going and they don't want to change plans, then I may just leave my service dog at home and use a service human. But if it's someplace like quite generally, it's just me and I just want apples. And so if they can't accommodate my dog, I'm going to call a different farm and pick somebody else who can and give them my money. So it's not so much about rights and do you have the right to go to the other one? Maybe you do, but is it worth the fight? And for me, it's simply not worth the fight. If I'm going to spend money, I want to spend money someplace that is okay with my service dog being there.
And sometimes, you know, they tell you no, and then they explain that they've got, you know, alpaca and llama out in the fields, and guarding their alpaca and llama, they've got, you know, 5 maremma. And if they see your dog, those maremma are going to come and intimidate your dog. Well, I don't want my dog in that situation. I wouldn't want my Great Pyrenees in that situation. I wouldn't want my poodle in that situation. So I wouldn't take my dog. And there
Right.
are valid reasons for them to say, no, we don't want your dog on our farm. We've had dogs chase the sheep. We've had this, that, and the other thing. We have livestock guardian dogs that are less friendly than Pyrenees. And
right.
So there's reasons. The other thing that to think about is if you're going someplace like into the hospital, yes, we want our dogs there. We want our dogs for comfort. But realistically, when you're admitted to the hospital, it's very difficult to be the primary handler because you're there for nursing care and they want you on the floor so they can keep an eye on you. So you can't take your dog down outside to go potty. And you would need to have a secondary handler to manage your dog. And while that's possible, and it may not be practical depending on who your service human is.
Mm-hmm.
And
it might also be very, I'm like time of day. Quite honestly, sometimes in that situation, a dog can do better as far as medically alerting to things that machines and nurses are not going to pick up on. But sometimes there's nothing a dog can do. So like if you take into account Azul's 2 biggest jobs are his migraine alert and his dizzy alert. If I'm laying in a bed, I'm not getting dizzy. I'm not going to pass out. I'm already laying down. I'm not going to get hurt if I do pass out. And chances are I probably already have a migraine and I'm on max meds anyways. So neither one of those alerts really are beneficial for me to have a service dog in that environment. So I may have an alternate handler bring him for part of the day, but to have him there 24/7 for however long I'm there is not really fair to him or to everybody else. So we have to think about that.
Or if you have surgery, I mean, it's very difficult to be left with your dog when you're stuck in bed and you can't get out of bed because you've just had, maybe you've had an abdominal surgery, maybe you've had surgery on your arm or your leg. It's very difficult to get out of bed by yourself in the hospital, especially between all the tubes and wires, and be able to manage the dog. So the dog is most likely going to end up sleeping on your bed without the secondary handler. And that may or may not be something that works with your current medical situation. I know that when I'm supposed to have surgery in a few weeks, and when I do, Nick is not going to be going as a service dog. He's not going to be coming in to visit me. He will be someplace where he can play and he can have some time off until I come back, because when I come back, I'm going to need him to do his tasks even more so.
And I think that's part of the bigger reason we wanted to have this talk, is that so many people think, all right, I have a service dog. I have to be able to take them everywhere with me. And we have to think about, is it safe for us? Do we need their services there? Is it safe for the dog? Is it fair to the dog to ask them to work in those conditions? And we need to normalize the idea of we can be away from our service dogs. Yes, they're going to be with us probably 95, 99% of the time, maybe. But we also have to train them to a state of where they cannot be with us. And so we have to practice that while we're training. And we have to not judge each other or harshly say, why didn't you take your dog to this situation? We get enough judgment from family and public and all that other crap. We should not be getting it from service dog handlers. And we should not be thinking of it as, well, if I didn't take my dog, it was because they weren't trained enough. That's not the reasoning behind leaving your dog home. Is it safe for them? Are they going to be able to do their jobs? And are you going to be able to meet their needs in that given situation?
Well, the other thing that comes up that we should bring up is humans tend to pair up. And sometimes one member of the pair will not want the dog to go to a certain event, even if they're normally okay with the dog going anywhere. And I've run into this, and I actually was kind of frustrated. I was very frustrated with this, because my significant other has no issue with my dog going 99% of the places we go. There's two places he doesn't want my dog to go. One is a barbecue that we go to every year, and the other is his work company Christmas party. So the decision I've made is I just don't fight him on that, even though both experiences would be really good for my dog. It's just easier not to have to repeat and rehash and that decision of,
it's easier to leave your dog at home.
Yeah, sometimes it's just easier. And the compromise is, if I leave my dog at home, I have a service human, and so I don't pick up things off the floor. I have a significant other that can do that. And
Right.
Or I can ask the waiter, oh, I dropped my fork on the spoon and on the floor, and they'll either pick it up or they'll get me a new one. Which, if I dropped it on the floor and the dog handed it to me, I would still ask for a new fork in the restaurant.
Right. Me too. I was going to say, they better get you a new one.
Yeah, exactly. But that, it's okay to have those times where you don't take your dog, to, say it's or to a wedding. Maybe the bride is a bit of a bridezilla, and she says, no dogs at my wedding. Well, if you have somebody that can function as your service human, there's nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with accommodating the bride. You don't have to take your dog.
When my niece got married, she would have totally loved to have had my dog there as a service dog rule. However, the wedding was taking place on private property on their yard, and they had 3 dogs that would not have handled it well. And so she had to say, well, we'd love you to come, but you can't bring your dog, because it wouldn't have been fair to their dogs. And the bride shouldn't have had to deal with that on her wedding day, having frustrated dogs that were extra barky because they could smell another dog on property. Bottom line for me was that it was an 8-hour drive one way. And so I would have had to have been there first. It would have been a 3-day trip, and expenses is what prevented me from going. But had I gone, I would have left my dog somewhere else for the short time that I was at the wedding, because it's not worth the fight. Now, my niece totally loves dogs. Anywhere else, any place else, she would have loved to have seen my service dog. But we have to respect our family's rights or wishes in those situations.
Right. And like Nick goes over to my parents' house to play. My sister's dogs go over to my parents' house to play, but nobody takes their dogs over when we go over to my parents' house for a holiday. That's the unwritten rule. And even though I benefit from having Nick around, and I goof up a lot because I look at their dog, who's a doodle, and I drop a fork around Nick and it's picked up immediately, and I expect their doodle to do the same thing. And then I'm like, oh, that's right. You don't know how to retrieve. You're a doodle. It's just something I harass my mom about because she gives me a bad. But
I totally get it. And it's hard when we get used to having our dog with us there all the time to think that we can survive without them.
Especially if they're a shadow dog.
Our dogs are not going to live forever. And we have to be able to function without them. And we need them to be able to function for periods without us. So I totally get it. I want my dog with me 24/7 most of the time. But we also have to be open to that. Sometimes it's just not good for me, good for my dog, or good for another person that we're going with, such as your significant other, and it's his Christmas party. You have to think about things like that. And it is super normal and super okay to leave your service dog at home, or to send them like for a play date with friends, or whatever is fitting. Azul is crate trained, although at home he doesn't need to be in a crate. If I'm not there, he spends most of the time sleeping on the couch, sleeping on the bed, or harassing my husband for belly rubs and treats. At the training center, I can put him in my office and he'll stay just fine, unless I'm standing right outside the window with another dog.
Well, and Nick is also crate
trained because he wants to be out there.
Nick is also crate trained, and half the time he spends the night in his crate, even though he's not supposed to. The other night he kept waking me up, and I was just having a conversation with him. I wasn't giving him any cues. And I said, if you wake me up one more time, I'm going to have you go to your crate. And he takes off and he pushes his crate door open and goes in and closes it. I have to be careful what I say to my dog.
Right.
Because I usually tell him to box it when it's crate time. So
we have to, first of all, admit that it's normal to leave your service dog at home in some situations.
And just keep in mind, you're not with your parents or your significant other 24/7, even though you might want to be. So it's not that different with our service dogs. We're going to be apart from them from time to time, just because we can't be with them 24/7.
So one of the things that I advise my teams that are just starting out is to think ahead of time about particular environments or situations such as, so kind of at least create that mental list or put it on paper. If I do these things, I won't take my dog. And so for me, it's like, it hasn't happened since I've had a service dog, but for me, it's if I'm going to an amusement park, I'm not taking my dog. If I'm going to spend the day on roller coasters, I'm not taking my service dog. That's just me. Some people might.
For me, it would be if
Going
I'm
to a small local concert that is, 100 people or so, just easygoing and lots of space and no crowds, then I might take my dog. But if I'm going to a huge concert with 1,000+ people and loud music and people that have been drinking or under the influence of other substances, heck no, I'm not taking my service dog in that environment. So we want to think safety for us, safety for those around us, and safety for our dog in every situation, and create that list. Cindy, do you have any other places?
Yeah, like I would take Nick kayaking in a heartbeat, and I actually changed kayaks to get one that is Nick friendly.
I need to do that.
I would take him kayaking, but if I went whitewater rafting, I would never take him whitewater rafting. If I went mountain biking, yeah, I'd take him. Now, if I went to the Portland Waterfront Blues concert, I have taken Poe twice, 2 different years. And I would not hesitate to take my dog to that, even though it's loud. There's people that are under the influence of various substances. Basically everything Penny just described, and there's over 1,000 people. What else?
But it's also based on how many people per area, and it's safe for the dog. And does your dog stick out enough? Poe is large. Everyone's going to see her.
Yeah.
If you have a knee-high dog that people are going to be stepping on and it's going to be too crowded, I mean, we can't control the public, and we can't get mad at people for being people.
No.
So we have to think about, is it safe to take our dog in that situation? And for me, that would not be a place that I would find suitable for my dog. But I'm also not likely to go to a big, loud concert with thousands of people, unless by chance in my emergency management days, I used to do that in a security fashion. And in that way, I had my golf cart or something. And in that situation, I might take my dog if I could keep them safe and not have to be in the crowds. But, it's all variant on what your dog can handle, what you can do to manage your dog with the distraction of all that's around. If you're going to be under the influence of various substances, you may not want your dog there, because you may not make the wisest of decisions with them there.
And you may not make it home.
Yeah. And so, various things to think about in deciding if you should or should not take your dog. And so, yeah, if you're starting out with a new dog, or if this is your first service dog, really consider that. Have that list ahead of time. Talk with your significant other and say, I do really need them in this, and this environment. But when we do this, I'll make other arrangements for my dog.
And the other
going to be there to help me.
The other thing is to consider what stage your dog is in. Poe is and what your dog is like. Poe is a very different dog than Nick. Poe has the perfect temperament for public access. She's just calm and level and medium, and she just she just goes with the flow. Nick is a little different. I don't know that I would take him to half the concerts I've taken Poe to, just because of the type of thing they were. He did okay in Portland, but I don't know. I think he'd really struggle because there's a lot more people up there.
Mm-hmm. And you really have to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Put some thought into it. Yeah, some things maybe we happened that we didn't expect. Maybe we took them last year, and this year it was a whole different vibe or a whole different experience. So my number one rule of thumb is any place that I go and feel that this is bothering my dog is not settled, they're not being their normal happy-go-lucky self, or they're acting abnormally, and then I want to be able to leave. So if I'm in an environment where I can't just leave for some reason or another, like maybe I don't have the transportation, maybe I rode with a friend, or maybe I don't want to leave because I'm dying to see my daughter perform on stage or something. You know, if you have something that you can't leave, it might be a good event to not take your dog to.
They could sit in the crate for a few hours. It's not going to kill them.
Especially if your dog's in training. But even fully trained dogs, you know, if it's super important to you, if your dog is graduating from college, if your daughter is graduating from college, and for the graduation, the school has said no dogs, not even service dogs, because the crowd is too big and it's unsafe, kind of thing, then you know, go into that wedding or that graduation or that big once in a lifetime opportunity. I had a son that was in the Army, and so when he graduated basic training, it's incredibly hard to get permission to take your service dog onto any kind of military grounds. Incredibly hard. And so could I have done it and gone through the paperwork? Perhaps, but they still have the right to deny them at the gate if they don't want to let them in. And so you have to decide, is this once in a lifetime opportunity? Is it worth it to get there and not be able to go? Or should I just make other arrangements ahead of time? Or can I reasonably figure that, yes, we're going to be able to work through whatever comes up and you know, fix the situation?
And we had a situation where if I had realized what was going on, and I should have, I would not have taken Poe, because we went to a soccer game. The women's team in Portland the women's pro team in Portland was playing the same night that the men's basketball team, the Blazers, were playing. And we got both games got out at the same time at roughly the same location, and almost everybody took the train in, it seemed like, because it's much easier than trying to find parking in downtown Portland. And we got on the train, and it was packed, just packed. And if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't have taken Poe. The advantage, though, of having Poe was all these people gave me a seat. They made sure I had a place to sit, which was nice because I needed it. But it's, you know, you need to think about those things. It's not just at the event. How are you getting there? Why are you going by that route? You know, are you taking it because you can't park in a certain area? You're taking public transit because you can't park in a certain area, so it's just easier to do this and less expensive. But you want to keep those things in mind, and you have to think about, now, am I going to be able to sit with all my friends if I take my service dog? Not with Poe. So you got to keep these things in mind.
Yeah, and that's all we wanted to say, is think about it, especially when you're looking at public access and training public access. It's a very good time to think about what some of those situations might be for your life. I'm not a person that goes to big concerts. It's just not my thing. But if you are, you know, you want to think about that. So what the rules that I've put in place for me and my service dog may not be rules that work for you. And that's okay. We all have to pick out our own. And especially if we're a newer handler, then we may not have figured all of that out yet. So there may be bumps along the road when we figure those things out.
Right.
But
and like Nick,
always ask your canine coach. I mean, that's the number one thing I tell all of my people is ask your trainer, your canine coach, what do you think about me taking my dog there? I never get bothered by my service dog team saying, do you think this place would be okay for my dog?
exactly.
And years of experience that they simply don't have.
I feel the same way. I mean, like, I'm taking Nick to an air show. It's not just an air show. It's the last running of the Reno air races. And it's going to be loud. We are going to be under the planes that are flying over. There's going to be planes on, you know, in the cockpits or on pit row starting up. There's going to be planes starting on the runway. And then there are going to be planes flying overhead. It's going to be loud. And rather than have poor Nick suffer through all that, Nick is going to be wearing his hearing protection I'm going to be wearing hearing protection. So it's just good to keep those things in mind.
Exactly. And so with that, we'll kind of leave you and let you think about that. But please, if you have any questions, reach out to the canine coach you're working with in this class, whoever that may be. And if you don't know who to reach out for, or even if you don't like the answer you get from your canine coach, sometimes my answer may not be agreeable to you. You can always email Crazy2Calm Canine Coaches at gmail.com for access to all the canine coaches that are working together to put this class on. So that way you can get feedback from multiple people. And don't forget, we have the Working Paws group where you can post questions there too, and you'll be treated with kindness and respect. And with that, everybody have a great day.